Welcome to another edition of 100% Canucks. John Shannon with Landon Ferraro. Landon, we're now into the second week of August, and all that time we thought summer was never going to end. You're not looking in the rearview mirror anymore. You're looking straight forward, and players are starting to travel home to Vancouver. I know the coaches are in meetings all week in Vancouver. And it's about a month, just a little over a month to training camp. It's a funny time of year for a player, isn't it?
It really is. January, June and July, they seem to drag on, and you're heavy in the gym, you're heavy on the ice, trying to get ready and get moving, but at the same time see family and make sure you have all that time. And then August hits, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're getting moving here pretty quick. And the fact that more and more guys go back to their cities that they play in earlier to get everything set up and just get comfortable again. Like once August hit, it's countdown time again, and you're thinking about fitness tests, you're thinking about the start of the season and how that's going to go for you, and all those thoughts start creeping back into your head. Like it's professional time starts clicking back in pretty quick.
By the way, this is the last year that the teams are going to be allowed to do fitness testing. They don't exist in the new CBA.
What a beautiful thing. See, I was lucky, though. My first couple years in Detroit, we didn't even have a fitness coach at that time. Even in 09, 2010,
right?
They were pretty behind on that. So our fitness tests were like three different things. We were in and out. My buddy was in New York with John Tortorella. They're doing the big skating tests, and he's dying. He's like, "How's it going over there?" I'm like, pretty good. We're in and out in about 20 minutes.
So what was it like, young family, knowing you had to pack up and move back to a city? What was that like?
I don't want to say lucky, but my son, I had him my first year out of playing. Okay. So for me, it was just my wife. She would always stay, an extra month at home. I'd go because you're so busy during camp, and you're tired. You have the two-a-days, and you're kind of moving quick. But at the same time, you want to make sure you have that allotted time to be with your teammates, go to dinner, hang out, kind of get reacquainted again. And for the new guys coming in to really get to know them and spend that time together. But especially when I got to Europe, it was, you get over there and, you got to pack up your whole life. You're trying to make sure that, the car's packed up. I would drive to Michigan because it was way easier than shipping your car and everything. So, it was a lot to handle, but that drive there was always way shorter than driving home after a season where you weren't too happy with or something, because you had all your dreams ahead of you again. It was another season of pro hockey. That's not promised to you. So it was always an exciting time, at least for me. I loved that part.
By the way, no, there are no two-a-days anymore either. So
well, two-a-days where they do it, but it's like 45 minutes. You go over something, and then you go to another 45 minutes. It's quick.
All right. Hey, so today's guest on 100% Canucks is, I think, one of the best goal-scoring players in the history of the Vancouver Canucks, Tony Tanti, who was traded from Chicago after being the 12th overall pick in 1981 by the Blackhawks, traded to the Canucks for Kurt Fraser. And Tony is Tony's really a great, I think, a great hockey story, a great life story when you consider what he did as a player and what he has done since he retired, and how he contributes to the business community in Vancouver, where he became an adopted son. But you're too young to remember about Tony Tanti, but I'm sure your dad has told you about him.
Yeah, I remember watching a little at the tail end, but at the same time, I'm trying to reacquaint myself and learn a bit more before this got going here. And I knew he was, he's high up in a lot of categories in the franchise records in Vancouver. And you look at it, he's sixth in goals at 250. He's in eighth with 470 points. Hopefully for Canuck fans and Elias Pettersson this year, Tony will move down to ninth, because Petey only needs 14 more points to pass him. But like what he was able to accomplish in his time in Vancouver, especially the goals he scored at and the clip that he scored at, like it's so impressive.
First full season, 45 goals as a Vancouver Canuck. So that's Tony Tanti coming up on this edition of 100% Canucks.
I won't keep you long. Darren Millard with a tip for everyone who loves great hockey podcasts like this one. John Shannon and I host the OG of 100% Hockey, coming your way multiple times a week. The guest list is the best you will find. Multiple shows a week ensures you won't miss out on any news, and we dig even deeper into the biggest stories around the NHL. Most of our guests are also friends, so I promise there'll be more conversation beyond the X's and the O's. John really does get bored with that after a while. So join us for 100% Hockey. The name says it all. Subscribe now while you enjoy thinking about it. And enjoy.
Welcome back to 100% Canucks. Landon, Ferraro, and John Shannon, joined by Tony Tanti, who, if those people who are under the age of 50 don't remember, was one of the great snipers in the history of the Vancouver Canucks. His first full season in Vancouver, Tony, I believe, was 45 goals, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's good. I got my statistics right for the first time in a long time. But you were traded from Chicago after being a Blackhawk draft pick. You were traded for Curt Fraser. And Curt Fraser, in his time in Vancouver, was an unbelievable fan favorite. You know, the line of Gradin, Schmiel, and Fraser were legendary at that point in Canuck history.
Yes.
Feel any pressure?
Well, you know, I was 18 at the time, just turning 19. And when I came to Vancouver, I didn't really, you know, you're naive, right? So I just remember Roger Nielsen calling me. We have a game that afternoon, just traded, and Roger opens the door in the hotel. He's in his underwear, black, you know, middle, and he goes, "Tony, I need to speak to you." I said, "Okay." So I go into the room, and he goes, "Tony, you know, we traded you for a really popular guy on our team." And I said, yes, Roger. He goes, "Now, you need to you have to come into the dressing room very, very slowly and not, you know, ruffle any feathers," because he was sort of the glue of the team, him and Stan Smeel.
Right.
So I was going like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Right. So my first year, I got traded in January. My first year, I was very quiet. I didn't really say too much, and then the following years when I got the 45 goals, and it was a transition, but they were big shoes to fill. But at that time, Chicago had a great team. You know, Orville Tessier was the coach at that time, and they were first overall in the NHL, and they were trying to win the Stanley Cup at that year. So I think it was a good trade for both teams. And for me, it was the greatest thing that ever happened, because the year before in '82, after the Oshawa Generals got kicked out of the playoffs, I came up with Chicago, and I was here in May of '82 when Vancouver played Chicago in the semifinals of the Stanley Cup. And I was like, I've, you know, never been here. I was like, wow, this is the nicest city I've ever been to in my life. And following year, I got traded here. So it was fabulous. It was a great, just an omen.
Of course, the '82 year where the Canucks went to the Stanley Cup final, and what people don't remember in Vancouver is, of the three teams they beat in the playoffs, they actually had a better record than all three teams. And people in Vancouver just never thought the Canucks were a really good team at that point, but they beat, including the Blackhawks and including Los Angeles, teams that had better records. And really what happened was the Edmonton Oilers got eliminated by the Kings and Bernie Nichols in that first round, and that changed the whole perspective of the Western Conference. I've got to ask you, though, did you always see yourself as a goal scorer? Was that your prowess all the way back to Oshawa, or even before Oshawa?
Not really. I mean, like growing up in minor hockey, like I didn't play AAA till I was minor bantam in Toronto. Like I played for the Mississauga Reps at that time, and I was just a late bloomer. I played at that time I think it was called A. There was A double A. I played A hockey. I was always the last cut on the double A team every single year. And, for Pee Wee, I didn't go to Quebec because I didn't make the Mississauga Rep team. And there were players on that team. They were great. Greg Gilbert played on that the double A team at that time. And there were some other great players too, but I was always the last cut. So in minor bantam, I made the team. And then in bantam, I was actually the captain of the team. And then what happened was in Mississauga, at the Mississauga Rep time at that time, there was minor midget and midget in Toronto. I'm sure there still is. Mm-hmm. So I didn't want to play minor midget. I wanted to go straight up to midget. And Mississauga didn't allow that at that time. So I said, I'm not going to play. And then St. Mike's said, we'll take you as play major midget. So there was a big fight at that time for, getting the card or whatever it was. And so I went to St. Mike's. It was like on a Sunday night. They gave me the transfer. Monday morning, I was going to school at St. Mike's. I was doing the whole thing. And in the finals in major midget, St. Mike's played against Mississauga, and we beat Mississauga, and we went to the TELUS Cup at that time. And we lost in the finals of the TELUS Cup to St. Foy in Quebec. Yeah. So it was quite a journey. And then I played junior B. Then I got drafted out of junior B, played junior A, and it just went from there.
So was that something that, like you look at your first year in Oshawa, you get, I think, 81 goals and 150 points, and then, but you get to your first full year in the NHL and, you have 8 goals, and then that next year you explode to 45. Like, was it always like that bit of a chip on your shoulder to show that you could do it, or?
100%, Landon. I mean, when I was, I played junior B in Oshawa. I mean, at St. Mike's, I was, I was an all-star at junior B. I was first line, and we were first place in junior B, and I got drafted in the 4th round in the draft. And not looking back, but at that time I'm thinking, okay, that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because that's the chip on my shoulder. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'm going like, I'm playing against all these guys that are getting drafted way, way before me, and I'm going like, I don't get it. I just don't understand it. I'm a small guy. I'm like 5'9", 5'10". But it was a chip on the shoulder. And then I worked so hard that summer, working out and training. Which was awesome, because my first year of junior, like you said, I had 81 goals, and I went to the perfect place in Oshawa. That was also a key. And that you need to have the opportunity to play. And that year in Oshawa, even though I was drafted in the 4th round, Joe Sorella was the 1st round pick in that for Oshawa. Norm Schmidt was the 2nd round pick who played in the NHL. There was Dave Anderchuk, who was the 5th round pick at that truck. I was the 4th round pick. So we all came in young, and we were all, Oshawa was picked to be the last place team by a mile, and we finished, I think, 2nd, and we were like one of the best teams in the league, and it was just the stars aligned where I got an opportunity to play, and that's the main thing in anything, is the main opportunity to play. And then when you do have that opportunity, you have to produce.
I was going to say, you talked about chip on your shoulder. I would have told you the chip on your shoulder was your size, period, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 100%. Back in the day, now it's not so much, but back in the day, you had to be 6 feet, 200 pounds, and stand in front of the net and, do all that stuff. But even though I stood in front of the net, I took abuse, I did all that stuff, but he's too small, he's too slow. But it's the tangibles that every team needs to succeed. And you just take a look at you take a look at the Blue Jays this year. I mean, they bring up all these young guys that are hungry and they're excited to be there, and I just think it's that's what I love about sport so much. It's the underdogs that do it. I mean, a guy like Johnny Gaudreau, who passed away. I think there's a guy who undersized, but he came through and he played with passion. And I think that's what it's all about. I think sometimes as a scout, you've got to look at other things and just not the physical specimen. I think you got to look at what's inside and what type of person they are and how hungry they are and things like that.
Who were your first line mates in Vancouver?
When I first came for half the year, it was sort of a mishmash of everybody. But when I started playing when I was 19, it was Patrick Sundstrom and Tiger Williams. And Tiger actually
that's Fire and Ice, right?
Oh yeah. And Tiger stayed at my place about a month ago. He was here. His wife's sister had a birthday, so he stayed at my place, and his wife stayed at our place, and it was quite a great time.
For the record, Brenda deserves a Purple Heart 20 times over.
Oh yeah, 100%. Brenda is like, that's what my wife and Brenda are great friends, and that's what we say. We said, Brenda, you're the only one that could last with Tiger.
And by the way, she does not call him Tiger.
Oh no. But Dave just turned 70. About 6 months ago, he stopped drinking. He said he turned 70 and he stopped drinking just like that. Completely stopped. And it was, I'll tell you a story about Dave. Is the other thing about my rookie years, Bill LaForge was our coach in Oshawa, and I had 197 penalty minutes that year. Okay. Which for a little guy, because you had to protect yourself. It was just that time, that was the type of hockey it was. And I remember coming to the NHL and I was in the top 5 in scoring, I think, when I just got off to a hot start, and I got in a fight, and I get to the bench, and Tiger's beside me, and he elbows me. I'm going like, what in the world are you doing? And he says, no, what are you doing? I said, well, the guy was all over me. He wanted to fight. He goes, no. You score goals. It's my job to protect you. I'm fighting. You're making me look bad.
It's funny you say that. So, I mean, you obviously get traded for Kurt Fraser. He was my first coach in Grand Rapids in the American League. And one day I was taping my stick by the front door and I didn't have my shirt on. And I'm not the biggest guy. And he comes by. He's like, hey, put her shirt on. We got the guys walking by that's coming in to play us. We don't want them thinking they're all like us or like you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kurt was a good guy. We became friends after, because he back then he used to spend a lot of the summers back in Vancouver, and he was a diabetic, and he used to have with Buzz Fuller from Earls. They used to have a big golf tournament here, and I supported that really well.
You mentioned Roger Nielsen, and if you were on that Chicago team that the Canucks beat, you were there with Towel Power.
Yep.
You obviously have seen the statue outside of Rogers Arena. Yep. What was Roger like, more than wearing just his underwear that first meeting?
Roger, of all the coaches I've ever had, I liked Roger probably the best, which is hard to explain, because you've got to realize, so in 1984, I stayed at the Johnny Canuck, which is on Hastings Street. I'm not even sure if it's a Best Western now. Like it's like the slums.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's the slums. It's right by the old Pacific Coliseum. So, I'm there. That's where they put me, and I'm 19 years old, and I would walk to the rink every day, and we'd have the bags that the teams would give us for laundry, for laundry for underwear and hockey. But I would take that home. I would fill my own clothes up, and I would give it to Kenny Flager, and he would wash my clothes at the rink. So it's like Christmas time, and I've never spoken to Roger one-on-one, ever. Okay. And I know it's hard for Landon and these people to understand that. But I loved Roger because he didn't say anything, just go play your game, go do whatever. Well, at Christmas time, I'm single and I'm staying at the Johnny Canuck and I've got nothing to do. So I go to the rink and I have a sauna and I'm working out in the dressing room. And there's Roger. And Roger, if you know Roger, he was very shy. And he didn't look at you in the face. And he had his dog Mikey.
Sure.
So I'm in there having a sauna, and Roger's coming out of the coach's room with a video. He's watching video, and I'm walking down the hall, and we're crossing paths, and there's no one else around. Roger looks up, and I look up, and he goes, and I said, "Hey, Raj." And he goes, "Hey, Tony, how you doing?" Pretty good. And he's very awkward one-on-one, and he says, "Where are you staying?" He goes, "I'm staying at the Johnny Canuck." And he's going, "What are you doing there?" And I'm going like, "Well, I don't know. No one's ever told me to get a place." And I'm like fifth this is Christmas time. I'm fifth in the league in scoring. And he looks at me. He goes, "Really?" I goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, get a place." And then he walked off. And that's when I knew I made the NHL. Is at Christmas time when it was crazy, and I was sort of like going like, "Oh my God, what do I do? I'm 19 years old. I don't know what to do." I said, "They do my laundry. They're paying for my hotel." So then I had to figure out, okay, I have to go find a place to live. I have to go furniture. It was today that would be like crazy.
But so, like you say that, like it's Christmas time, and like you say, you're fifth in the league in scoring at that point. I mean, again, it's so different now because guys would just go in and talk, be like, "Hey, am I good to go get a place?" But like, did you truly feel like I'm still trying to prove myself, and like I could be gone at any second here? Yeah,
I mean, it was so different because the management and coaches at that time didn't really talk to the players. It was just like, you were as good as your last game. That was it. Now the contracts are so big, and no trade, and no this and no that, and it was just different. But again, it does put a chip on your shoulder. It keeps you hungry. It's sure that's for sure. But yeah, it's just a different time. And when I say that story to people, they don't believe me, but that's the way it was. And it's I wouldn't change it because it was different. It was the way, it was my story. And, to me, everyone asked me, to me, the journey was the best part of my life. Just
Sure.
The journey of getting there. Right. And it was the journey of these stories and all this. It's not getting there was a business. Once I was there, it was a business. But the journey of all these stories and how I got there and all these stories, that's what I remember the most about everything.
Well, the other thing on that, Tony, and Landon, you'd appreciate this too, was that in 2025, a lot of those questions would be managed by your agent.
Yes.
And the agent world has changed so much too, hasn't it, Tony?
Yes, it sure has. I mean, the agent was really back then was only there for the contract.
Right.
And now there's so much more, but back then, there there wasn't all these TV, there wasn't TSN, there wasn't, Sportsnet, and there was Hockey Night in Canada, and that was it, right? So,
and your parents from Southern Ontario,
yep.
They couldn't watch every game.
No, they would go to a bar, or they'd try to get a satellite somewhere, or go somewhere where they would carry it, and that's how they watch the games. It's not like today where all these, you can pay for something or whatever. It's completely different. There's no high definition TV, and there was nothing like that. It's just and it's different, but but also on the good side, we could go out and have a beer, or we could go out and do whatever with the guys, and there wasn't social media, there wasn't phones that people were taking pictures of you. It was the guys were not as probably protective as they are right now, where they can't do anything.
I'm curious, with the time change, your mom and dad would have to be up after midnight to watch your games.
Yeah.
Would you call your dad or your mom in the morning? How would you communicate?
Yeah, I mean, it would be, we wouldn't talk every day, definitely, but it would be probably the next day, but it wouldn't be after. And they wouldn't watch. They would say, "Oh, we tried to watch, but it was really blurry," or
well, you make it sound like you played when there was just black and white TV, Tony. It wasn't that bad,
Well, no, but in the early '80s, there wasn't much around, right?
That's funny, because I bet you the Canucks really only had about 40 of their 78 games televised, if that.
I don't even know if they had that.
Right.
Really, I'm not even sure they had that. And
you'd have what? You might have 10 on Saturday and 25 on Wednesday, and that would be it.
I'm not even sure if we had that many on Saturday, because back then, John, remember Toronto? I mean, Toronto was definitely the center of
yeah.
But which they should. It's the biggest city. It's the most fans. Everything else, but Vancouver would probably get once a month, maybe, because they didn't have like they do now, like 2 games or 3 games. They was one game at 5:00. And
Canucks started to have 5 at home, 5 on the road, I think, in about 82. So
yeah, wasn't a lot.
No, it wasn't. And when you actually talked about Kenny Flagler, there was a guy who actually lived in the dressing room.
Yes,
serves me, right?
Great guy.
And then you were later coached by Bob McCammon.
Yep.
So, I mean, talk about a group of characters around your hockey club. When you go from one extreme of Roger to KG, those are different worlds, man.
Oh yeah, and KG was KG. Right? He was a lot of fun. I wouldn't say, X's and O's. He was not a very good coach, but he was really, he knew how to handle the guys. I don't think he would be the guy for today, but back then, I mean, he was great. Then after KG, we had Pat Quinn, and then I got traded, and I had John Muckler. I had some really good coaches, all different. John Muckler, I thought, was definitely a really, really underrated, but he was a great coach.
Like, looking at your goals, I last night clicking around on YouTube again and just, kind of watching some stuff, and like, you could score from distance, but it was amazing to me how many, well, just rebounds in general, but like getting your own rebounds, like the way you could fight your way, like take the shot and fight your way into it. Like, you talked about your chip on the shoulder earlier, but like, were you always like that, even as a young kid, like always finding your way into that blue paint, getting in tight and fighting for those?
Well, it's funny. I think your game evolves, right? I just think, what does it take to stay in the league, or what does it take to? You're always trying to improve, and every year there's always something that you can get better at. And I didn't have the greatest shot. I wasn't the fastest guy. I wasn't very big. I wasn't very strong. So I needed to have that chip on my shoulder, and I needed to, when the defenseman shot the puck, I had to be in the right place at the right time. At the time at all, so I played a lot of soccer growing up. So it was a lot of not where the ball is, it's where the ball is going to be. Put it to open areas. So I was always trying to read the plays, and I just think I did that really well. And today I think I would be better with the rules the way they are, definitely,
for sure.
But again, back when I played, there was always two good lines, and the third line was a checking line, and the fourth line was a goon line.
Yeah.
So, and then there was always a good set of defensemen, a defenseman that and not a bad pair, and then not a very good pair. So I always tried to pick on those others. So I was always trying to outthink everybody. I always tried to have an advantage of, I was always a thinker. And that's what I tried to do. Just, okay, this guy does this, and I always studied the other team. So if there was a game on TV the night before, I would study the defensemen who to work on and what their tendencies were. And it was just, I hated to lose. Losing was not an option for me.
So how frustrating was it that this team just never seemed to be able to get over the hump? I mean, whether it be in the regular season or the limited times you made the playoffs.
It was tough. I mean, it was tough times, definitely. It was hard, mentally. And, I played in 3 world championships after that helped out. It was hard to go there, but once I got there, I was glad I did, just to get, to win and to have that feeling. And that's the first time I met Pat Quinn, actually, I think it was in 1980, was it 86? It was in Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we got kicked out of the playoffs by Edmonton. And I was roommates with Dale Hawerchuk. And we I think there we won a bronze. I think I scored a goal. We beat Finland, I think 3-2 or 4-3. I scored a goal in the last minute or else they would have got the bronze. And I remember sitting in the dressing room after the game with Pat, smoking a cigar, and just and then he was the coach in '89 when I was there, and Pat was a great guy. Pat wasn't a great X's and O's guys, but he was bigger than life. He was just such a great guy, and you wanted to go through the wall for him.
Of course, the '89 series was against Calgary.
Oh, yes,
and if Pavel Bure scores, was it Pavel Bure had
no, there was a couple of things. That was Game 7 overtime. Joel Otto scored in the crease.
Well, half the Canuck fans still think it was kicked in, so it's okay.
100% it was kicked in, and they. But by the way, they lost one game the rest of the Stanley Cup, the rest of the way.
On the way to win the Stanley Cup,
all the way, right? So that was a great series. That was Trevor Linden's first year. Stan
Smeal. It was a Smeal shot. It was a Smeal
shot. He had a breakaway. I had a slap shot that Mike Vernon said, and it's funny because that summer I was up in the interior and I golfed with Mike, and I said, I can't believe you saved that. I had a slap shot, and then he did like round the mill, and I'm going like, he says, you know what? He goes, I thought you beat me. I didn't even know. I just went like, put my arm up, and the puck was there, but that was in overtime, and they had a great team, but we had a good team too. We had Paul Reinhart was on our team at that time, and we came together at the right time.
Yeah. Just for fans listening, to put it in perspective, Tony's first 5 years as a full-time Canuck, 45, 39, 39, 41, 40. How did you screw up and not get 40 goals in those 239-year seasons?
I've hurt a couple times there. I was hurt.
Were you getting bonuses for 40 goals too?
Yeah, probably like $2,000.
Just get your vacation for after the year.
Exactly.
So the good things that came out of Tony Tanti getting traded to Vancouver and playing for the Canucks. Your wife's from Vancouver, correct?
Yes, correct.
So you met her there.
Yes.
And you're one of those guys that, bought into the lifestyle of the West Coast and have been there ever since.
I have, and I absolutely love it out here. I was just back in Toronto it was so hot. It was so hot. Visiting my mom and dad in Mississauga, and but out here, I've got my granddaughter who just turned 2 August 11th, and life has been really good to me. I've got some great friends, and I have a great family and been married 37 or 38 years, and nothing better.
Well, you better plug the business if you're still doing it. Are you retired or what?
No, I'm still doing it. I've been doing flooring. I've contracting flooring since 1998.
Wow, God, you're old.
Prior to 97 and 98, and some of my good friends are like the Boza guys that are big developers, and Cressies and Polygons and Beatties and all those guys, and it's almost like a team that I have, and I'm the general manager, and my son-in-law is working for me now, and he's sort of the coach, and I can take some time off and know it's in good hands.
I imagine because I see your name on the tee sheet quite a bit. Like, I saw you at the course earlier today, and do you manage to get yourself out there quite a bit? Is that one of your big pastimes now, making sure you're working on the game?
Yeah, I'm definitely trying. I'm definitely trying that now that the kids are grown up. I can try. I just love being out there. It's fresh air, and plus, right now the condo business, the real estate business, as you know, is not the greatest of shape right now. So you might as well go out and enjoy yourself while you can.
Does it quell your competitive spirit? Because you guys, you like, none of us, like Landon understands because he's a pro, but the regular Joes like me, we don't understand your level of competitive nature. We don't. Yeah. As much as we think we do, we don't. Like you'd carve our eyes out just to score a goal. You would.
I would, 100%. I would. When I played, I mean, I remember. I definitely remember like Larry Playfair. All these big, huge defensemen that would at the face-off, and they'd be telling me, "I'm gonna tear your eyes out. I'm gonna spear you between," and I would look at him and I would go, "No, you're not, because you're not going to catch me, and I'm going to get a goal." And they would be, Ben Wilson, all these guys I remember, and they would get so frustrated. And one of the things that I really remember is after I retired, I did one of these interviews with Jim Poplinski, and it was at Andy Moog's golf tournament in Penticton, and they were talking, and I'll never forget that Jim Poplinski, they said, "Okay, what do you remember most about Tony Tanti?" And Jim Poplinski said, "I don't think people realize how tough he was and how tenacious, and he was one of the hardest guys to play against." And to me, I don't care if a newspaper guy says it, but when a peer says it, sure, that's it's great.
Well, that's the chip on your shoulder. So last question for Landon.
I mean, I gotta ask, because you end up playing your last 6 years in Germany and Berlin.
Yeah.
I played a year in Berlin and 3 in Cologne. What was that experience like for you? Because Berlin was a different place in that time than it was for me going over there.
Well, it was funny because, I went in '92, and I had some offers from the NHL, and the money was actually better there.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a young family, and I just thought, well, I can see the world. I can get my kids to see the world and spend some time there and play, I think, 40 games. And it was just the right thing for me to do, because my body was getting beat up from, being in front of the net and getting beat up. So I just thought it would be a little bit easier on me. But when I went there, the hockey was great. And there's a lot of pressure, Landon, that there's a lot of pressure on you to succeed there. Especially back then, there was only 3 foreigners that we were allowed. We got paid, but we had to perform.
And I couldn't even imagine, just quickly on that, like, the rink you would have been playing in was our practice rink, because they moved into the new bigger one. Like, that's a tight old barn, and it, like, the stories and footage I've seen in there, it just got wild in there.
Oh yeah, it got wild. Exactly. So it was. I wouldn't change it, because we traveled a lot, and my son was actually born in Berlin.
Okay.
Again, that's part of the journey where I can talk about, living in Europe and just what I've done in my life. I played golf yesterday with some of the top brass from Intercorp, who's a big developer, and he came and said, are you more proud of your hockey career, or you're more proud of what you've done after? And I said, and I got to think about it, and I'm going like, you know what, both. Both, because once I left hockey because too many guys keep dwelling on the past, and I think once hockey is done, and I think it's very tough on a lot of guys in hockey that once you're done hockey, okay, what do you do? And I think it took me a couple of years too, also, to realize that you have to move on, and if you don't, it's tough. It really is tough.
Life after hockey is a tremendous discussion point, particularly when you consider now the money that players make, that they don't feel they need to have second careers, and then they don't know what to do with their lives, Tony. It really is a challenge.
John, I think that's another podcast where that's one of the things that I really think that the NHLPA, it's also we lose our teeth playing hockey, and then 20 years later, your teeth, you have to redo them all. Well, I lost my teeth from hockey. I think the NHL should pay for that. I think there's a lot of different things that we gave up that,
right.
There's discussions and a lot of different things that we paved the ways for a lot of, for the guys the way they are now.
Well, the good news is that our old pal Glenn Healy is changing the way of that course and thought process. And it sounds like in the new CBA, there is money dedicated by both the PA and by the league to help the Alumni Association. So your idea is correct, and it's pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, I've got there's no real feelings for me, because I'm fine, but a lot of the guys that really do need it, and I think they should be compensated.
Wait, listen, thank you for this. This was fantastic. It really was.
Well, thanks, John. Great seeing you, and you're one of my favorites. And Landon, great to see you, and I'll see you at the golf course.
So there's Tony Tanti, 250 goals as a Vancouver Canuck, and I will be wrong not to remember that his number 22 is retired in Oshawa, hanging in the rafters for the Oshawa Generals. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Landon. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
That's Tony Tanti. Landon and I'll be back on 100% Canucks after this.
listen up. Today I want to talk about giving 110%. Giving 100% means giving everything you got. Giving 110% means giving 10% more than is humanly possible. If we're going to win as a team, we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. If only 50% of you guys give 110% and 50% of you guys give 100%, I guarantee you 100%, we'd only win 50% of our games. Suppose 75% of the 110% gave only 50%, and 50% of the 100% gave 25%, and 75% of the 110% were not feeling 100%, then we'd be in a heap of trouble. That's why we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. Okay. Let's go out and play some hockey.
So, Landon, the concept that we talked about at the end there with Tony about life after hockey is one that lots of players don't have to worry about because they are financially set for the rest of their lives. But a lot more players aren't than are, in my opinion. And it's important to make sure you understand what you're going to do with the rest of your life, correct?
100%. And it's something that even from my first year of pro in 2011, 2012, like you guys still didn't really talk about it as much because it was still the thought of you got to focus on your job right now. You got to focus on hockey. And as I started to move through it, it became more and more of a talking point of that doesn't take away from you being a professional and putting everything into your career. But whether you're the best player to ever play the game or someone that just scrapes between the American League and the NHL, like your career is going to end and you need to have a plan. You need to, and the biggest thing, it's not even, and now I'm a couple years out, but the biggest thing, it isn't even about, okay, where are you going to make your money and where are you going to do this? But it's especially those first couple of years, it's like, how are you going to occupy your time and your mind? Because all of a sudden you don't have 25 teammates that you see every day. You don't have that built-in support system. Like it's a really lonely place your first couple of years. My dad always told me a line of when you're in, and when you're out, you're out. And I always said I got it, but when you're out, like when I finally retired, how quickly some of that like support is gone. And I don't mean, Glenn Healy, like you said, is doing a great job with the alumni to really help change how that works on that side. But just like you don't have grabbing a coffee when you first get to the rink in the morning and talking to your buddies at the rink every day, like that's gone. And you have to find a way to kind of rebuild yourself. But guys are doing a better and better job of thinking about what's next. And it's great to see because you're still a young guy when you retire. Even if you're one of the old guys that you make it to 40, like you got a lot of life ahead of you. You got to know what's coming next and make that transition as smooth as possible.
Yeah, we've come a long way from long before even I was born, where hockey players had summer jobs.
Yeah,
and in many ways, one would argue that they might have been in better shape because they had a job to go to when their job on the ice finished. And the other aspect, and you kind of touched on it there, is that the pressure that this puts on family and on wives. The divorce rate amongst retired hockey players is much higher than the regular population, simply because the player is lost and he has to learn how to live again and learn what to do with the rest of his life beyond being a husband and beyond being a father, correct?
For sure. I mean, like one of the hardest...
You're lucky. You get to babysit every day, man.
I know. I mean, I didn't think that was going to be my main job when I got done playing, but I mean, little Luke is making sure I'm staying busy right now. But no, like you're totally right. Like you have to, honestly, like one of the biggest things for me was, okay, say you're having a tough day and you're just everything, you try and go to the store, there's traffic, and then they don't have what you need, like all these little things.
That's called
I would
life,
get to go to the rink the next.
It's called life.
I know, but you never really think about it. But like I'd get to go to the rink the next day and, we'd play a game. And if I had a couple of those things stacked up, my first couple of shifts, I made sure I got to run through someone. Like that's now assault. You can't do that. Like you got to find different ways to let it out.
Certainly not at the grocery store.
Definitely not.
And by the and to that point, a guy like Tony Tanti is a great example of success in life after hockey. So it's he's always a fun guy to be around. Thanks for this, Landon.
Yeah, thanks again.
All right, that's this edition of 100% Canucks. We'll surprise you with another guest next week. I'm John Shannon. Talk to you then.